Hello guys, this is Vinit from Edge-Forex and today is the 4th of June 2025 and talk of the town is the ADP job numbers. It's only 37,000 in the private sector. Now that is, only 37,000 jobs were added in the private sector and that is a lot lower than expectation, and that's the lowest since March 2023. And sure enough, Mr. Trump has a tantrum saying too late Powell must lower the interest rates after the weak jobs report. Now, why do we think this number is so low? Because Trump think maybe is because of all the tariff tantrums that he had. And that's why there was an initial rush, initial hiring, because people wanted to get that inventories that were in place converted into the final products. That's why the last couple of months were good job numbers. And now all of a sudden people are running, or factories and these big businesses are running out of inventory. And now they have nothing to produce and they are letting go of the factory workers. They're letting go of the middle management and they're getting rid of the lowest level worker. So if that doesn't make sense to Mr. Trump, I don't know what will. There's only one person who is causing this panic in the marketplace, and that's himself, Donald Trump. And the day, I don't know, I really don't know. I was never a political person. I never thought I would be talking politics, but this is not politics, guys. This guy is making markets an absolute hell, whole of a place. Because, as I said before, you send a joker into the White House, he's turned the entire government into a big circus. And that's where we are at. Currency markets are in a chaos. Bond markets are in a chaos. He doesn't know when to stay shut. And he's now, his tariffs on his steel from coming in from EU go in effect today at 50%. What is he thinking? Who is going to pay? And he says, no, it's asking businesses to pay 50% tariff, but not to pass those costs on to the consumer. How is that possible? What if your um the the profit margin is say 10%? How can you as a business absorb 50%? It's not going to happen. You are not going to import, or you are going to import from a country where there is no tariff or little tariff. But now, all of a sudden, you're making redundant all these factories and all those workers in EU that were sending you these goods and cars and things made of steel. Like, what are you thinking? What are you trying to achieve here? It makes absolutely no sense. I just don't get it, guys. This guy is driving me absolute nuts. So as so let me actually remove this indicator here. So yeah, so you're looking at EU or USD, and it's still on a path moving higher, and it's not looking very good for EU or USD. Your dollar is weakening, and I think it's going to weaken further because it's making, if you look at the chart, we're looking at a 1 hour chart, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, lower low, but again, higher highs. If that is a low, that's a lower low. And then looks like it's going to go towards 1.15. And I think rest of the June, or at least majority of the June, I think dollar is going to take a hit. And let's see how things unfold. But one thing I can promise you guys, there is going to be lows and lows of volatility. So be very, very nimble. Be very careful. If you are not sure, if you're not a professional, if you have not done this thing in the past, the best thing to do is to stay on the sidelines. And this is a great time to actually practice on your demo accounts. If you have a strategy, practice on your demo accounts. Time couldn't be better. So if you can scale through these markets and get out on the other side, you would have learned a lot. That said, so now there's another news where Ukraine bombed Russian airplanes and destroyed 30% of the bomber fleet that they had, and that too deep in Russian territory. And that was huge. And that I was surprised it didn't have a much bigger impact on in the markets. And then Russia comes out and start to threaten nuclear bombs. So I guess, guys, the world is in becoming a madhouse. And I believe there's only one person to blame, and that's Mr. Trump, because it makes absolutely no sense. He doesn't know how to negotiate. All he does is rattle the cage and hope that, hey, things will fall into place. But things do not work like that. So that's it. So weaker than expected job numbers. Now he wants Powell to go and reduce the rates, which I don't think Powell is going to do because inflation is in check right now. Growth is happening. So it's not like economy is slowing down too good. So we're not in a recession. Numbers are all looking positive. Job growth is still there. It's not like job growth numbers are negative. So I don't see any interest rate cuts for foreseeable future. And that's going to not make Mr. Trump very happy. And the markets are going to have a wild, wild time. Now, you must be thinking, okay, all this is fine. But hey, well, 1 second, Vinit. Why are markets rushing high? Look at this, guys. So markets are now higher now than they were when Trump came out and announced the tariffs. Now, why is that? Why that's the case? Okay, see, he came out around 4th of April, and look where the markets are today. Crazy, isn't it? So why is that? So because of all the tariffs that Trump put on, what it has done is it has put a halt on to the trade with the US. So these are all these companies that were using US dollars to buy raw material, to create goods to ship to the US, are now sitting on all these dollars. They have no idea what to do with those dollars. So now what they're doing is they are selling the dollars and doing certain things. They're buying their local currencies because they still have their local commitments to pay their bills, to pay their employees, and they have their fixed costs that must be paid. But they're not selling any goods to the US, but they have lots and lots of US dollars from their previous shipments and previous orders. Now, that said, they are converting those into the local currency. So, for example, if US as from EU, from Mercedes is sending a lot of cars. Now all of a sudden they're not sending cars. The factory doesn't shut down. The factory is still up and running. So they have those costs. So now what do? Mercedes will sell US dollars, convert them into euros, and then pay their employees to keep the factories up and running. Now, other thing that they're doing is they're buying US stocks using US dollars. And that is driving the US stock prices higher. This is not a fundamental driven rally. This is not a momentum driven rally. This is a purely liquidity driven rally. There's a lot of liquidity out there in the US dollars where all these countries and all these companies, big companies, are parking their US dollars in US stocks, which is driving the US stocks prices higher. And now roll a few weeks out once the dust settles. Now, at some point, the Trump's tariff tantrum will subside. So at some point, it is going to end. Sometimes there are going to be all these deals that'll get finalized because you cannot have these trade paused for an indefinite period of time. It will have to start at some point. Otherwise, the countries are just economies are just going to collapse, starting with the US and the EU. And then once that collapse starts, guys, nothing can stop it from having an absolute disaster. Imagine, guys, total supply chain is disrupted. Okay, so now you don't have essential goods on the shelves, not because you don't have money, just because there is no supply chain, because they're coming from countries like China or EU where tariffs are so high that these companies can't afford to send them over because the companies that are importing can't afford to pay the tariffs. So now they're not importing. Now there's not enough on the shelf and there are shortages. So now once there are shortages, no amount of money can buy those essential goods. That's when people panic. And then once people start to panic, then it becomes into a mob psychology. And that's where you don't want to go as a country, as a planet. We do not want to do that. We do not want to get there. So now, so I'm trying to kind of walk you guys through as to what I think is going to unfold once these tariffs are negotiated, once all these trade deals are negotiated, and then the goods start to flow and manufacture at the normal pace, now you would have so much backlog, and there'll be this huge demand for these raw materials to create these goods. There'll be huge demand for iron ore, huge demand for copper, huge demand for lumber, for cement, for precious metals, for silver, for so all these things now have huge demand. So now, we're, what do they need to buy these raw materials? US dollars. So now all of a sudden there'll be this rush into US dollars. Now, where are they going to go get these dollars? They're going to reverse all these trades that's actually driving the market higher. Now, then at that point, will become a catalyst on the opposite side. Now, they're going to be selling their local currencies to buy dollars. So there's going to be a shortage of the dollars in a few weeks to a few months when these trade deals are finalized and things go back to normal. There's going to be this huge demand, and that is, I'm saying, is going to be a trade of a lifetime, which you guys, whoever is following me and my work, we are getting ready for that particular trade, because we don't want to miss that train, guys, because that's going to be huge. Right now, short term to medium term, you may want to short the dollar, but be careful. Be very careful when you're shorting the dollar, because Trump can come out tomorrow and say, hey, all tariffs are done. Let's go business back to usual. And then next thing you know, there's this huge drop in the markets. Dollar spikes 4-5% in a day, and you are sitting on a losing trade. I don't want us to get into that trap. So that said, I think I made my point clear, and how maddening the market situation is right now. And if you're not sure, sit on the sidelines. There's nothing wrong in being on the sidelines. The money that you're not losing in the market is the money you're actually making. Think about that. All right, I'll talk to you guys on Friday. I'll be live, and hopefully we'll be having live Q&A sessions. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment, or join our Discord. You'll have a link in the description, or join me on our Telegram. We'll have our link in the description. And I will be talking to you this Friday. Thank you.